Hello everyone and welcome back to Superboy Beyond, and we have another of our commentaries for you today. This is what a lot of people agree is the turning point for season 1, from when the show was not so good to when it actually started showing noticeable signs of improvement. And obviously there were 2 more episodes that followed this one, so it is the Alien trilogy, I guess. Those 2 episodes will be released as an extended episode with both commentaries in one next week, so be sure to watch for that. Alien Solution. This is a pretty great episode, really, for season 1. I wouldn't put it up there with the episodes of like season 3 or 4, but on the season 1 scale, I think this is about as good as it gets. I mean, I would argue Revenge of the Alien is better, but as a jumping off point, this episode's very good.
Yeah, this definitely is one of the better ones of season 1. I mean, you can chalk this up with Luther Unleashed, Hollywood, even
Kind of Princess.
Mr. Mix's Pitlick is up there.
Yeah, it could have been better, but it also could have been much worse. Like there's a reason why we do talk about that episode from time to time. It is one of our favourites.
Yep.
But do you know if the alien? I mean, you've read it all. Do you know if the alien ever turned up in the tie-in comics somehow? Like, I'm assuming he's dead by the end, really. But
he did not show up in the tie-in comic. There is a similar type of creature, an energy creature called the Traveler. So it's a possibility that the alien could be
the same species, maybe
the same species, or like an offshoot of the same species. But it was never kind of.
It's never confirmed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, if people want to go and pick up that issue, they can decide for themselves. Obviously, I haven't read that one yet because there were 2 issues. Okay, were they like? Was it just a 2-part story, or were they separated?
Nope. It was separated. The first time the Traveler appears is, of course, issue number 1, which we did the commentary on, which is
I only just realised the Traveller is the same thing that was in issue 1. As you saying that, I forgot what they even called it in issue 1.
Yep. And then there was a 2-part story which we haven't gotten to. It's issues 9 and 10.
Right.
And that's what introduced. And I know I'm spoiling things a little bit. It introduces the Phantom Zone.
Nice.
And there is a Traveler in the Phantom Zone, not the same one, but a Traveler.
Interesting. It's a shame. It's a shame that the alien from Alien Solution and one of the Travelers couldn't fight at some point. I don't know how they would depict that on a comic book page, but I mean, it's got to be easier than on television. Anyway, get your copy of the show, season 1, episode 9, The Alien Solution, and we'll count you in with the 3, 2, 1 play, and when you hit play at the same time as us, you'll watch it along in sync. So get ready, hit play in 3, 2, 1, play. Since the intro sequence is going along at the moment, we try not to talk about the intro as much because we realised we were doing it at the beginning of every episode. If this is your first time watching alongside us, I did forget to mention this isn't a typical YouTube reaction video. You're not going to hear any audio from the episode, but there will be a heavily filtered version of the episode up in the corner up there, just so you can make sure that you're in sync alongside us. But here we go. The title sequence is over.
Yep.
It's an interesting way to open it. It's just going back to Countdown to Nowhere with Lana falling out of the helicopter.
And yet it's not. Because what he says to her, you've got to stop being thrown out of helicopters.
Oh, it's definitely the same footage, though. That is obviously a way to save money, then.
Yeah. And, of course, she's wearing the same outfit.
But yeah, this is one of the few episodes of Superboy where there is a scanned version of the original script online. I will include a link if anybody wants to download and read it for themselves in the video description.
Yep. There are definite differences between the scripted version and what we actually got, and the main difference is in the aliens' ship.
Yeah, in this, you can tell to save money. It almost looks like the inside of the ship is like a cave set. But as I think we've even said in an earlier episode of this show, when you first read the script, like the biggest difference is just the fact that in the script it's described as sleek and futuristic, you know, like a starship, whereas this almost looks like a bat cave. Like that set, if you parked a Batmobile at the bottom there, and in the tubes you just put a bunch of different bat suits, it's a Batcave set.
The only part about what we've got here, though, is the tubes.
Yeah, I imagine the tubes must have been in the original scripts.
Mm.
And, you know, it's not the hardest thing to accomplish as well, so...
Now, that's a figure I would love to make.
Yeah, I was just thinking, how would you even go about it?
Yeah, I mean, are there even, samurai-style warriors in 6-inch scale?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe if the Power Rangers ever went up against them. They mostly went up against, like, supernatural threats, though.
Yeah.
It is a cool suit, though. Yeah, if you was to make a miniature of that, you would have to just make so much of it from scratch. Because I can't think of anything where you could pull some of this stuff from. Like the chainmail and stuff wouldn't be too hard. Like, the figure's so small that you could probably get away with just medieval style chainmail and you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference on that size. But the mask, like the face mask...
Yeah, that's... Like I said, I'd love to make it, but I don't know if I could.
You know, I don't think that Stacy and Gerard's chemistry was bad, but her chemistry with John was so much better. It's maybe the one thing that I think John had over Gerard was his chemistry with Stacy. And we know why. It's because they were actually together at this point, but...
Yeah.
They really just were very, very good together on screen. I can't speak to the off. It's funny, the way the mask thing goes over, it almost reminds me of like a baseball like type thing.
Like
maybe
like a catcher's mask.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you could find a figure that's vaguely similar in that. I don't know. I imagine they make toy versions of baseball players if they're relatively famous.
Yeah, I think McFarlane does a starting lineup set.
If any of them come with a mask that you can put on and off yourself, like, perfect, just take it off and slide it onto another.
Yep.
But it is a cool costume, I mean, you can tell it's quite a low budget show still, relatively. Like, as Mark Jones has said, like, it actually did have a pretty good budget, but just not all the money went on screen. But I don't think it's a bad costume. It certainly looks better than, like, Micro Boy's costume.
Well, we've talked about Micro Boy. And,
yeah, it's understandable. It's a homemade suit. He's.
I mean, it worked for that.
Yeah. But this is a genuinely pretty cool looking suit. I wonder even if it still exists. Like, if somebody has it, I hope that somebody owns it and it's like on a mannequin in their living room or something, along with that giant gun.
Yeah.
I imagine the gun would have broken a long time ago. Some of the parts look like they were barely hanging on in this.
Yeah, like the Thermaton 14 gun from Luthor Unleashed.
Yeah.
And now we got our only technical appearance of TJ in the whole episode. It's a phone conversation with Clark.
Hmm. It is a cool looking weapon. I mean, it's quite simple, but I think it's a really cool design, really.
Yeah. It's very interesting about the voiceover that they do for the alien in this body. It's very different than what we got in those upcoming scenes from, I think it was like the previous episode where they did the what's next on Superboy.
Mm.
They really went heavy into, overdubbing it with a Asian sounding voice with this one.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds like sort of the old kung fu movies. Like he's almost like the alien has taken the body of like a space kung fu master or something.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense given what he's wearing, but I don't think you could get away with something like that today.
Yeah. The only way you could probably get away with it today is if you actually hired an actor and that was their actual accent. But yeah, it's a bit stereotypical,
But it was the 80s, so I
Yeah.
guess we can give it a pass.
I wonder who actually did the voice for it,
We'd have to ask Mr. Carlin about that, because since he wrote the episode with Andy.
Yeah, I just wonder, because obviously you can't see the actor's mouth moving. So I wonder if it was a completely different guy in the suit versus the voiceover.
It was definitely a different guy in the suit, because the voice that's coming out of it in the soon on Superboy scenes.
Mm. Is it? I don't even remember how different it was. I remember the Superboy line in that trailer, but I don't remember any of the others.
Yeah.
But I mean, it still could have been the same actor. It might have just been that they had him re-record all his dialogue because they weren't happy with it. It is funny because I feel like if I was a kid and I saw this episode at the same time that I was watching Power Rangers, this would have been my favourite episode of the show because it is very Power Rangers. But obviously the Americanized version of that show hadn't been made yet.
Right. That was like another 4 years off.
Yeah. I imagine the Japanese show that they pulled the clips from to make Power Rangers, I imagine that had been going for quite some time because that's part of the reason why they made it is because they had access to all this footage and could make a show very cheap. But he's a cool design. I like the makeup on his around his eyes and the fact they've got contact lenses in for him.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm really noticing it, that his skin is absolutely gray. So it kind of leads to the idea of what we find out later, that it's a walking corpse.
Yeah. I like that he's got this mask over his face. They probably could have got away with doing a lot less in terms of the makeup. The fact that they actually did, go through with actually making it look pretty cool. Yeah. And I've got to say, in this scene when Clark thinks Lana's dead, I think John is doing a much better job than in the season 4 opener when Lana supposedly dies in the Adam Varel episode.
Yeah.
He just sort of gets over it. He just looks pissed off that he's in prison for it. And it's no, Lana's dead. You should be acting a little bit more distraught. Because at that point, he didn't know that it was faked. He should have been a little bit more like he is in this scene, maybe.
That's not, and this is one of the reasons why we have always said that it's very close. The acting between John and Gerard.
Yeah, because there are scenes like this where you can point to an equivalent scene in Gerard's seasons, and Gerard does a slightly worse job. Like, no disrespect to him or anything, but he should have played it a little bit more like this, in my opinion. But then you can also go the same way and point to a scene that John does and then a scene that Gerard does, and Gerard be a lot better. So it's almost like you wish you could sort of combine the performances into one thing, but no, and that would have maybe been, the definitive Superman.
Yeah. I like this expositional scene with the doctor. Now we're finding out that they did a test on the body and it's loaded with something like formaldehyde.
I've got to say as well, the lighting in this scene I think is pretty good.
Well, I mean, it was directed by Colin Chilvers, so you know that it's the lighting on it is going to be done, to build atmosphere.
Yeah. This is one of those episodes where I so want to see this in HD. I want to, this is one of those episodes that I think would really benefit from a proper remaster. It's just a shame that I don't think Warner Brothers even has the money to do it at the moment. They seem to be struggling a fair bit right now.
Well,
they've had a few duds at the box office, haven't they? Like Black Adam followed by The Flash. Yeah. I don't know how Blue Beetle is doing. I mean, the movie looks good and it's getting good reviews, so I do plan on watching it. But yeah, I wasn't in love with the last two outings for the DCEU.
Well, I haven't seen The Flash yet. I'm waiting until it comes out on Blu-ray in a week.
It's not as bad as people say, but it's also not that good either, in my opinion. I think it's perfectly fine. Some of it is pretty damn great, though. I will say that.
Although the CGI on Christopher Reeve looks horrible.
The CGI in general in that movie looks horrible. I think because of the Ezra Miller situation, they just didn't want to pay to finish it all, to the right standard. What can you do?
Yeah.
It's not like they knew when they hired him that he was a creep. Or they were a creep, I forget. There's a pronouns thing. I'm really not trying to be disrespectful.
Let's just make it easy. Just say Ezra Miller.
Yeah. Or I can just refer to them as Flash from now on.
Yeah. I didn't notice this before, but when her eyes opened up, there was sort of a bluish glow to them.
I wonder if that was a lighting situation or if that is contact lenses.
No.
Like maybe she just gave him. Like they might have given Stacey the same contact lenses that they forced John to wear for a bunch of his close-ups, because his eyes have the same sort of supernatural blue.
Yeah.
John is really freaking good in this episode. Like, I know we say occasionally his performance is somewhat wooden, but he is genuinely phenomenal in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of his better acted episodes.
Now, I think Stacey is fantastic as well, but I mean, that's not really saying anything because we say that every episode.
Yeah.
Literally every single one we say, man, Stacey is so good in this. It's like, it's not news at this point. She's just always good. There's a reason why she's our favourite Lana Lang of all time.
And there's a reason why she was kept around the whole run of the series.
Yeah. She's literally the only actor that was in all 4 seasons. Yeah, the more I look at this set, the more I think, stick a Batmobile in the foreground, and it's not a terrible Batcave set. If they did a live action Batman show around this time, I imagine it probably would have looked quite similar. Maybe a few more computers around.
Yeah.
And even the visual effects aren't that bad in this episode, A little bit dated, but I mean, I think they're accomplishing exactly what they set out to do. And it's just stylish enough that it doesn't matter that maybe the technology has improved a bit since. Like, it still looks pretty cool. I can imagine, the Enterprise D going up against something that looks like this. Or even Kirk's Enterprise. Like, he fought some pretty strange things.
Yeah. I just thought of something. I could probably make a custom of the alien in this form.
How?
Painted cotton balls.
Yeah. Get some wire or something so you can make it float above a stand. Yeah.
Maybe
Not
some
as cool
LED
as
lights.
not as cool as the samurai alien though.
Yeah. The only part I don't like is, John Superboy just destroying the aliens' bodies here.
I mean, he knows that they're dead already because of the previous one. I don't know. I would have a problem with it if it was never determined that the bodies were dead.
I mean, that's not the reason. I think it's just too aggressive for Superboy.
I don't know. After what he did to Lana, I'm not surprised that he's more angry than usual in this episode. I think it's warranted. I love that he's strong enough that he can just take it into himself and immediately expel it.
And it's interesting to note that that's just a heavily modified Coke bottle.
It is amazing, really, what you can do if you just paint something.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I know he's just changed out of the suit now that he's back as Clark, but I don't know. I think the colours were the best on John's suit. I don't know what they did for season 2, but I swear they took half the blue out.
And then by season 4, they started putting blue back in, getting...
Yeah, and suddenly that was the best looking suit. But I don't know. I really like the season 1 suit. If it had Gerard's emblem, it would have been perfect. It's funny, her eyes still look very blue in this scene, so maybe it's just Stacey's eyes. Maybe it's just her eyes combined with the lighting for the blue outside the window. And that's just a modified Coke bottle, you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the scenes where he's just carrying it under his arm, it definitely is. But when it's on the floor there...
I thought they maybe just added the sound effect as he rocked it back and forth. That would have been easy enough to do.
We'll have to definitely ask Mr. Carlin about this.
Absolutely. Yeah, genuinely, I think that's one of John and Stacey's best episodes. And I like the little joke at the end, which is very George Reeves. It's very... Almost even the Fleischer cartoons. Didn't they have a few jokes at the end where you do the wink at the camera and,
Yeah.
Lois would be like, how did you get here so fast? And you just be like, I flew, Lois. I'm Superman. And then winks at the camera and she's like, yeah, right. Anyway, that was season 1, episode 9, The Alien Solution. I'm just going to say, I do think actually this is John and Stacey's best performance. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I forgot that they were just that damn good in it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why this is a kind of a legendary episode among Superboy fans.
Yeah, and as you said, this was the turning point for season one, where it went from meh to ooh, this is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is out of our season one sliding scale? I'm tempted to give it at least a 9, maybe a 9.5 even, just purely because
I would go a 9.5 on this because
yeah,
I mean, it's very very tight. You didn't have too many extra characters. Yeah, the one scene of TJ on the phone, that was all that was necessary for it.
yeah.
This is very
There wasn't something for him really to do in this episode, is there? Like,
yeah.
What would TJ have done? Maybe he would have been taken over by the alien at one point, but it would have just been killing time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very tight with everything that's going on. There's no wasted scenes. I mean, a lot of episodes from season one, we always say, oh, this would have been so much better if it was either an hour long or it was a 2-parter.
I don't think it is with this one. I would have happily watched a 2-part version, but I don't think it was necessary this time.
Yeah. This is one of those episodes that is very tight, very, 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 very to the point. There's no excess stuff. The expositional scenes are necessary to get to the point of the story. The only thing that takes it down from a 10 in my book is the fact that we've read the original script and we've seen what they originally planned for the alien ship. It was supposed to be a ship and not a rock.
And we're fine with that, though. It was probably just a budgetary issue. And to be honest, if they had to choose between a super expensive set, or maybe like it was a choice, like maybe it was either the set can look really good or the alien's costume can look really good, but we can't afford both.
Yeah.
And out of the two, the costume for when he's fighting Superboy, I think, is the better thing to choose, really. Because he's a really cool looking suit. And I hope that at some point you'll see an action figure that you can take apart so you can make one.
Yeah, me too.
And, if anybody out there actually even knows what happened to this suit, like maybe Mike Carlin actually owns the suit. I don't know. I'll have to ask him at some point. But, man, if that suit still exists, I hope whoever owns it is looking after it. That's all I can say. Because it's one of the coolest looking villain suits this show ever had.
Yeah. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if maybe the Superboy Museum, Superman Museum over in Metropolis has it, sitting in the back room somewhere.
Quite possibly.
What it is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, supposedly there's tons of stuff like that. Superboy is just such a obscure show in Superman media. There's very few people that have actually seen it. It's like the Ruby Spears cartoon. Like, there's people that watch all the Super Friends, didn't even know the Ruby Spears thing existed. So yeah, I get it when they can't identify stuff immediately. Like, even someone that's a Superman fan could potentially have not seen this episode.
Yeah.
I think every Superman fan owes it to themselves to watch Superboy, just because I think they're missing out, really. Don't need any more reason than that, as far as I'm concerned. They're missing out. There's some really great stuff, and I think this is one of the episodes that really highlights why I love this show. And
and this is a lot of people say, oh well, meet Mr. Mix's Pitlick, that's when we start seeing real comic book villains. No, this is where we start seeing real comic book style villains. Because
I've said it before as well. I think this alien, in terms of the way that he goes around collecting bodies, always reminded me of Brainiac going around collecting and miniaturizing cities.
Yeah.
Both are kept in these like glass tube or jar type things. I don't know. I see some parallels. I don't think that this was supposed to be their Brainiac, but I think it's got enough of a comic book flavor to it that you can almost sense some of the influences, even if it's not overtly on screen. But,
it also kind of reminds me of a classic Superman story from the the late 40s, very early 50s, called The Thing from 40,000 AD.
Not read that one.
The Thing from 40,000 AD is this energy creature who has the ability to take on the form of other creatures.
Right.
He actually transforms into them, into absolute, true duplicates. And so the cover of it is Superman and the alien fighting each other, and they're both, and the alien looks like Superman, so you can't tell which is which.
I'm going to have to read that one because I like, stories like that with it's always the body snatching genre almost, even though this is more like a body duplicating thing, so it's not quite the same, but yeah, it's like, you can sense little bits and pieces, just like with the alien. You can sense some of the references the writers were thinking of. But yeah, just a fantastic episode. 9.5 from both of us, in absolute agreement. This is just a phenomenal episode. Thank you all so much for watching, and be sure to tune in again next week, where we're going to be immediately jumping into the follow-up, Revenge of the Alien. And next week you'll actually get both parts of Revenge of the Alien. We're not going to make you wait to see the conclusion. So we'll see you then. Goodbye.